I'm turned all the way up.
You are.
Is everybody else turned all the way up?
No.
I had them checked. They're good.
I can.
Well, I checked them online.
Oh, with Instagram, did you do that video of like how old is your ears? Did you see those?
That's cool though.
I don't believe it. I don't think it worked.
Your headphones.
Because they were saying I was like
as high as they can
50 years old with my hearing. Well, 48.
Really?
And I was like,
Well, maybe
there's
it's
no
because
way.
you two are far from your mic.
If we're like this.
Hello?
Oh, I can hear you so
Yeah,
much
yeah,
better.
yeah.
Is that better?
You guys look like you're about to sing a duet.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. There's our cold open right there.
my word.
There's our cold open.
No.
Hey everyone, welcome to the LifeNGeer Podcast, where truth leads to joy and adventure. I'm your host, Justin, and I'm here with Kevin
Hey,
Geer. What is up? I feel like it's been a minute,
It's been like a month.
But it's
'cause we do
been
this
a
on
month.
Yeah.
and I am so excited. We've got a fun topic we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about how I lead you. That's basically what we're going to talk about.
Basically what we are talking about. So that's hilarious.
But before we get to that, dude, you've had some life happening.
Oh, life's been busy. I'm in the busiest season of my entire life. In fact, maybe we'll do a podcast on this someday. I am in an unsustainable pace
Ooh,
till April.
okay.
But it's okay
Till
to do
April.
It's okay to do an unsustainable pace if you have an end to it. And I know that, and I
Yeah.
can't maintain. In fact, I was talking to my leadership team, and they're like my boss, and I just said, guys, I have every day filled, scheduled full, but I'm got my day off,
Yeah.
one per week, and but I can't maintain this pace of stuff that's being demanded from
Yeah.
me, and it's because I'm finishing up my doctorate classes.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm heading to Ecuador.
Yeah.
I'm heading to Florida. I'm heading to Portland. I'm heading to California for all these different kinds of
Sure.
teaching stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but I stumbled out of the gate, Justin.
Yes, you did.
What
happened to you?
I stumbled out.
Let's just talk about it.
So I was speaking at a conference.
Yeah.
I was only one of the sessions.
Yeah.
And I went to bed the night before with a little fever and wasn't feeling very good. And I'm a social. If there's people getting together, I want to be there.
Sure.
I left early. I wasn't feeling good. I know
That's a big
they were
deal.
getting together for coffee the next morning. I dissed out on that.
I heard you said no to Starbucks.
I said no to Starbucks. I was not feeling well. And then I ended up speaking. I ended up talking to a local board. And then I drove from Butte, Montana to Kalispell, which is 4 hours.
yeah.
And I was hurting. My stomach was hurting. Just
Ooh.
like it was like you got to go, but you can't go kind of hurting.
Really?
I don't know if that's the best way to describe that, but everybody
know.
got a picture of it. And and so that night I went home. I got in bed. And my wife knew I was sick.
Yeah.
Because when I get home from a trip, the first thing I do the minute I walk in is empty my suitcase and put everything away before I
Wow.
do anything else.
Wow.
I'll do that before I hug my kids.
Oh.
I like because then the trip is over.
Oh,
And
we're so opposite.
and well, I hear that's not very common. I didn't undo my suitcase. I
Uh-oh.
just crawled into bed.
Uh-oh.
And I laid there and I texted a dear friend of mine who's a podcast listener. He's also a doctor. And I said, hey, I think tomorrow I might go in and get looked at. My stomach's not doing good. And his reply is, yeah, that sounds fine. Or your wife will take you to the ER at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go right now. So I went to the ER and I ended up having a diverticulitis. That's what it's called.
Hey, you said it. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
I can't say that word.
Yeah, diverticulitis. And
Ow.
that was so loud, Andy. And that was like
Fired.
Cars are driving off. There's people who just had a diverticulitis flare up because they quenched their big colon so tight.
They quenched their big goal. What are you talking? Get back to your story. This is
Anyways.
horrible.
Sorry. Someone had turned up the board.
Yeah,
that I did
someone.
not
Yeah.
notice.
And the board. And who's the board
No,
sitting in
she
front of?
blames the board. Stupid
You guys
technology.
were just making fun that I can't hear. I can't hear nothing now.
Oh.
So, anyways,
So you went to the ER.
Yeah,
You got-
and then I ended up having to go on to antibiotics for 3 days at the hospital because a little bit of infection got in my blood. But
I went sepsis. I mean, whatever.
whatever. But I am feeling, that was like a few days ago. Now it's
Yeah.
February. I'm feeling phenomenal, and I got everything done I was supposed to get done, so
Good.
I'm feeling great.
Well, you just sat in a hospital bed for 3 days.
Yeah, I can't work at the hospital.
No. Well, the Wi-Fi's not secure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're like,
Well, yeah, my papers could be hijacked, right? But whatever. No, but I'm gonna tell you, I was hurting, and I can say this. They gave me fentanyl.
okay,
Didn't know they gave that in the doctor's office. Gave fentanyl. Didn't do anything.
didn't touch it.
No, I said, give me more. And they gave me more.
Yeah.
It didn't do nothing. And I was still, on like a scale from 1 to 10, I'm a 6-7.
Yeah.
And I'm a wuss, but I was hurting. And I'm like, and so this one guy, the guy that checked me in, we were just friends, but we kept talking about life and stuff. And I'm like, dude, I'm hurting. Like,
Yeah.
You have given me nothing
Right.
to help. He goes, I got morphine.
Oh,
Let me
that'll
tell
knock you out.
Yeah. And they did all kind of like blood cultures on me. I mean,
Yeah.
they took your husband, Andy, probably saw all the stuff that I
All
did
your
'cause he
blood.
worked and other stuff. And now I'm feeling good.
That's good.
Feeling good, ready to go.
Yeah.
I wrote this podcast in the hospital,
Oh, good.
I believe. Yeah. So
That's fun.
did I write this in the hospital? Oh, Tiny said I didn't write it in the
No,
hospital.
she's like,
I read it before the hospital. Yeah, the morphine fentanyl mixes it all up. Who knows where this is going?
Oh, that's great.
Hey, I will say this. Side note, so many people have reached out about our last podcast on grieving, saying how helpful that was to them.
cool.
And I'm just pumped that people are finding this podcast and finding help in it and laughter in it and also just how to live life kind of stuff. So thanks for everyone who reaches out and lets us know this is worth doing. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we love it. So let's get into our content. We're going to talk about an idea that's really labeled leading upward.
Yeah.
So what does that mean and why are we talking about it?
Well, I think it's an important topic because we all are somewhere, if you're looking at this podcast through work or you're looking at this podcast in your home life, if you want to have a joy and adventure within your life, you want to be able to have influence no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
Influence in your family. You want to have influence at your workplace. And honestly, most of us are not the boss.
Yeah.
Most people in the workplace aren't the boss. They're
Right.
serving under a boss.
Right. Like you're not the boss at home.
So that no, Cadence, my 8-year-old,
Exactly.
he just had a birthday and is 9 years old, and we celebrated it. She wore a birthday banner for 2 days. Who's the boss? She's the boss. And so how do you have influence beyond your title?
Yeah.
How do you have influence beyond the position you are on the org chart?
Yeah.
And I think there's a way to do that.
Yeah.
That is important. And I want to start by saying. And I think this is very, and I don't know if I talked about this in a podcast or not, but if I had, you need to listen to it twice. and that is this. There's a difference between manipulation and influence, because some of the stuff I'm going to talk about today sounds like manipulation.
Yeah.
And you know what? It can be.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between manipulation and influence. I'll say this. The two, it's the same gift set.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating concept.
Yeah.
That you use the same gifts to manipulate as you do to influence. And so as we break this down, I have 6 things that we can do to lead upward.
Yeah.
You need to start with the right heart.
Yeah.
Because if your heart is selfish gain, manipulation.
Yep.
If your heart is to create a better environment for all, that's influence. And it's very easy for influence to become manipulation, and you never become aware of it.
Yeah.
So you have to check your heart.
Yep.
In the scriptures, David, he writes, "Search my heart, O God." And I think that's a good process of examining your heart. And if you're a Christ follower or a Jesus follower, having the Lord search your heart to make sure that you're not becoming a manipulator, but that you're using the influence you have for the betterment of others.
And
that's powerful.
And it's not just, I mean, obviously we want a spiritual aspect of it, but this isn't just a spiritual aspect either. It's just our heart, what our intentions are when we're using this skill set.
Yeah. Human nature is prone to drift selfishly.
Yeah.
I mean, look at our history of eternity.
Yep.
Human nature is naturally drifts toward self-preservation.
Yeah.
Now hear this. Joy and adventure is not found in self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
That's where fear grows.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive. That's where fear lives.
Yeah.
But when you live to bless others around you, when you live to give of yourself to help others, you will smile more. Why? joy is found there.
Yeah.
And life is an adventure in that way.
Yeah.
And so that's why we approach it from this angle.
Yeah.
So let me jump in.
Yeah.
A few things on leading upward. Here's the first one. Number one is this. If you want to lead upward, you want to lead your boss, you want to lead your board, you want to lead those that are even across and around from you, you have to start by leading yourself.
Yeah.
We did a podcast on leading yourself, but I'm going to make this very practical on how you can lead yourself. The first thing I would say under leading yourself, be on time for every meeting.
Yeah.
Be on time for every meeting. Show up early. On time is early. That's a big deal, part of our Canvas culture.
Yeah.
In fact, when we were a smaller organization, if you showed up late, you had to buy everybody on the team coffee.
Yep.
And if you showed up with coffee in your hand late,
You got to buy breakfast.
yep.
Who
that's
started
exactly-
that?
Me. Oh, you did.
You remember that?
Justin, you were the first one. Tell the story. Tell the story.
I was the first one. I had just got hired here, and I showed up late to our my very first staff meeting. I had Starbucks in my hand.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'll never forget, this is horrible. I can't believe I'm doing this. And I go, sorry, you're sneezing and I'm distracted by you.
I pulled away so you'd keep going.
I know,
and
but
not
I couldn't.
interrupt the podcast.
So I show up and walk in with coffee, and everyone just lets me have it. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So then I felt bad for being late for the meeting and
As you
having
should have.
yeah. And so then the next time we had staff meeting, I showed up and I had Starbucks for everyone, but not like coffee. I had like all the whatever their
Oh,
bakery
you had
stuff.
breakfast, all that, yeah.
And then from there on out, we were like, hey, this is a great idea. And it just kind of stuck for a long time until our staff just got too big. When people were having to use the kitchen to make breakfast for everyone, we were like,
okay. But Jared McKinney, one of the people on our staff, showed up late. First meeting, he bought coffee for everybody.
Yeah.
Nate, who's also on our staff, showed up late for the very first meeting. I'm like, what are all these people showing up late?
Yeah.
Listen, if you want to have influence, you show up early. Now, here's the kicker on this.
so is
Well,
it
go
fair
ahead.
to say, I want to ask a question just
go.
to clarify.
Go.
Is it fair to say that when we're saying the term leading upward, we're saying we want to have influence
Yes.
in our leadership?
Yeah, we wanna
even
have-
though we're not in leadership, we still want to have influence in our
Right.
leadership.
We want to have leader. We want our boss to hear our voice.
Yeah.
We want our boss to hear what we have to say.
Yeah.
And no matter where you're at, and no matter if you like your boss or you don't like your boss, if you want to have influence within your organization, lead yourself.
Yes.
Be on time.
Yeah.
And then here's the other thing. I think a lot of people, if it's like a meeting you're sitting at, leave later.
Yep.
Don't be the first one to leave. In fact, we have people Skyping in or Zooming in to meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And here's some instructions that I've encouraged them. When the meeting is over, you often hang up right away.
Yeah.
Don't hang up right away. Don't hang up until you see people leaving the room, because there's often a meeting will flow into a different type of meeting after the meeting concludes where people talk. And the people who might miss that are those on the Zoom call because they exit out. But sometimes you hear a lot of good information in the meeting right after the meeting, in a sense. And so be on time and then leave later, because there's an opportunity where you can influence in a significant way. I think the other thing on leading yourself, be as little drama as you possibly can.
What does that mean?
Oh, be as little drama as you do not cause problems for the people that you lead.
Yeah.
To the best of your ability. And there's times where you have to go and have those conversations. But at the and one of the ways you can do that, we did a podcast on this earlier. Don't pick up an offense.
Yeah.
In fact, if you are a person oriented to picking up offenses and you're justifying picking up those offenses, go back and listen to our podcast.
Yeah.
On picking on, we called it killing the puppy.
Yeah.
So you'll remember it. That's part of leading yourself. When I'm leading, I have noticed, this is a very open statement. I will often find people who cause me a lot of emotional drama further away from me within the organization.
Yeah.
I don't even I don't even know that I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the time to deal with it.
Yeah.
Well, think, the further you are moved away in the organization from a person of influence, the less influence that you probably going to have.
Yep.
So don't be a person of drama. If you're always having to bring up drama kind of things, be aware of that and go, I'm causing that leader to spend more emotional bandwidth than they really want to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to become more of a hindrance to their leadership than a help.
Yeah.
And so I think that's be a person of as little drama as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And then if you must make up an issue, you must bring up, make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
That's leading yourself. I'm going to be the best person that I can be. Show up on time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to create drama. I'm going to be careful that I'm not causing drama with other teammates, because then my leader has to deal with that. I'm just going to try to avoid. I'm going to be the best team player that I possibly can be. That when my leader looks at me, they go, that's a person that I know leads themselves well.
So let it roll. Roll with punches. And pick and choose your battles wisely.
Absolutely. Lead yourself. Then the second thing I would say, and is be the first to say yes.
I love it.
Be the first to say Justin, you're one of these kind of people. You are one of these kind of people. Be first to say yes. Have an attitude. I can do that.
Yeah.
Even the hard stuff. And sometimes it's not the hard stuff. Sometimes it's the, I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that kind of stuff. You be the person to step up and say, I'll do it. I remember I was, when I was a children's pastor many years ago, and I was brand new on to all these other children's pastors. And these are like iconic children's pastors. I'm like, ooh, you know, they're like everybody
You're
knows
fanboying.
Oh, I'm fanboying.
Children's pastors.
Yeah, I'm fanboying. And I'm like, oh, I'm sitting at this table. And they're like, okay, we need someone who will take these things and put stickers on all of these things. I mean, it is drudgery work.
Right.
And I thought, hey, I'm new here. I'm in. I'll do it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
They're like, you're going to do that? I go, I'll take that. And then they go, well, we also need someone. And I'm like, oh, I got to find time to do all this. And
that's
go,
leadership.
well, we also need someone to do this other project. I can't remember what it was. It was putting ribbons on something. I go, I'll take that one too. And so they're like, well, man, you sure you want to do this? I go, I'm in. I'm all the way in here. Yeah. And I did all of those stuff. And I will tell you, the amount of influence I had among them skyrocketed.
That's cool.
And I didn't do this intentionally, honestly.
Yeah.
I fell into this. I just wanted to be liked, you know. So that's what the motivation.
People like me.
I want people to like me. I was fanboying, I think is what you called it. And it worked.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I'm always going to be the yes person at the table.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll do it. Even the hard stuff. If I can solve the problem or if I can provide the solution, I'm the yes person.
Well, there's a joy to serving people, and it just
Boom.
is. And it's sometimes you have to be wise in how often you do that, but there is just a joy that comes when you're serving other people and you're saying yes when people don't want to say yes.
Our society has gotten so much into protecting ourselves and our schedules.
Oh,
We've lost this.
Yeah.
We're like, I couldn't do it because I'm like, we don't understand the term sacrifice anymore. And you know, there's a balance in everything in life, but we want to find balance without sacrifice, and that's not balance.
No.
Sacrifice always requires your balance to go a little off kilter.
Yeah.
And I think there's a truth to that I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to stay up later, or I'm going to give the extra. I'm going to do more than anybody else is going to do.
Yep.
And what we want to do is we want to do the bare minimum but get all the benefits of the people who sacrificed.
Yeah.
Doesn't work that way.
No.
I want to be the person that's going to say, I'm going to be the first to say yes. I'm going to give it to my best. Here's a thing that I did this. There was a guy I was working under named Troy Jones, and he pastors a large church in the Seattle area. And I was just coming under him. I'm not on staff.
Yeah.
I am a volunteer. I have another full-time job. But I told my wife, whatever he asks me to do, I'm going to say yes to.
Mm.
And I go, I'm going to submit under his leadership because I want to learn as much as I can. What I did not realize is, there's a night I had a dinner planned, and he called me and says, I need to go to Portland and drop off a car. I'm looking for someone to ride with me. Yep. Canceled my appointment, canceled my dinner because I was going to say yes here because I knew this was worth the investment.
Yeah.
Well, that was 20 years ago.
Wow.
Troy is still one of the largest influencers of my life,
Mm.
but he allows me to speak into his life all the time.
That's
Never would have
cool.
thought that.
That's cool.
Power of saying yes.
Yeah.
Sacrifice to your leaders. And I think it works. It works. And again, with the caution, you don't have to be a slave.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing. There's a difference.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
That's number 2. So be the first to say yes. Be the first to say yes. I'm going to say one more thing on this. I remember I was at a church, and I was a host. So that means they come out after, like, they sing a few songs, then I'll come out and give announcements and then introduce the speaker. And so I was up, and I would work the vision statement into the church, the vision statement of the church into my host.
Yeah. And
I thought, I'm going to do because that's cool. I mean, that's like, I see the big picture.
Yeah.
I knew the pastor at the time would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like, this is me serving, okay,
Yeah.
the church and my pastor. Well, one of the other pastors, so I get done hosting. One of the other pastors is waiting for me when I walk off, and here's what he said to me. He goes, "You are such a brown noser." Because when you say yes, come on, when you say yes to stuff,
Target.
I don't know. Do they still use the term brown
Oh yeah.
noser?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm old too, so
Yeah, I don't know the new
I
hip
still
term
do.
of brown noser, but which is really gross. Okay, moving on.
what does it mean, Kevin?
Do you know where that term came from?
I'm joking. Yes.
Oh, okay. I just discovered it, and then I realized that
You've been using the term
Don't
and you
Google.
didn't know what it meant?
Do not Google.
do not click.
Do not Google.
So I that's funny. So I and I looked and I go, that's not brown nose, and that's honoring the leader.
Yeah.
In a simple kind of way.
Yeah.
So I just say that.
He
Be the
didn't
first
check
to
his
say
heart.
this. No, he's a good guy though. Number three. This is hard.
Mm.
Give an honest opinion when asked.
Mm.
Now, this is important. Give an honest opinion when asked. That doesn't mean always give your opinion.
Yeah.
Sometimes the greatest way to lead upward is to hold your opinion.
Yeah.
But when you are asked directly, what is your opinion? Give it. Humbly give your thoughts, even if they're not popular or mainstream with your team.
Yeah.
But that key is humbly.
Yeah.
Say, well, I might be the outside person here, but since you asked, here is my thoughts, and then be honest. Even if they don't like it at first, what will happen is over time, and you do this wisely, you're the one that gives your honest opinion. I want to back up here and say, not the counter opinion.
Yeah.
The honest opinion, what you really think.
Yeah.
Because we don't need negative Nancy.
Right.
We don't need poopy pants Paul. What we need is someone who will be honest.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's very affirming.
Yeah.
Someone says, "How did I do when I did that when I did that speech?" And I thought you did a great job, and you're asking me, I thought you did incredible. I was moved. Or I don't think it was your best opportunity, and I don't think it hit what you wanted.
Yeah.
Now, if I say that to someone, and they really want an honest opinion, who are they coming back to later?
You.
So the goal is to give an honest, and that's influence.
Yeah.
So give a humble opinion when asked. Even if they don't like it at first, you always return. One of the things I've noticed in pastoral ministry is when people come in for counseling, my goal is for them never to like me. I want them to like me, but it's not my goal.
Yeah.
My goal is to speak truth to them that will bring their life to joy and adventure in Christ. That's always my goal.
Yeah.
It's to speak a way that I know that God wants them to live that life.
Yeah.
That makes some people upset.
Mm.
And I have said things to people, and they have chewed me out. They have been so upset with me.
Really?
And then they storm out of my office. 5 months later, guess where they're back?
Yep.
Sitting in my office. Why? Because I told them a truth.
Yeah.
And truth always secures people, and people want to come back to truth tellers.
That's
so
good.
I think that's what I'm looking at there is be honest, give an honest opinion when asked. And to be aware of timing too, in all of that. So number 4, we've got 3 left. You got it in you?
Oh yeah.
If you're falling asleep on the podcast, just hit times 2, and I'll be a chipmunk. This is a key one. Be prepared when you take your leader's time.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared when you take. There's a guy that I meet with. His name is Mel Ming, and he is a significant influence in my life.
Yeah.
And man, if I set up a meeting with him, I always send him my questions ahead of time so he knows what the questions are going to be.
Mm.
I want him to be ready. I want him to be prepared. I understand how valuable his time is.
Yeah.
So man, I'm not showing up early then, except for to wait outside the door until it's the right moment.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to show up right on time.
Yep.
And then I'm leaving right on time. And he might be able to say, or whoever your leader might be able to say, you can stay for a few more minutes.
Yeah.
But my job is I want to honor that time because their time is valuable. and I want them to know way ahead of time what's going to be happening. And then I do as much research about the questions I'm going to ask as well.
Yeah.
Because I want to see if I can find the answers before I'm taking the time of them to give me a simple answer.
Yeah.
And that I'm knowledgeable in any questions or anything that I'm going to be taken. And then the other thing I would say when you have an opportunity to meet with a person that's over you in any organization, acknowledge them and appreciate them.
Yeah.
Of the time that they're giving.
Yeah.
That is not brown nosing. That is understanding they're using their time to your benefit.
Yeah.
And so I want to acknowledge that. I want to thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say when you're meeting with your leader, speak their language. And what do I mean by that? If you remember our DISC podcast, and we did the DIS and
It's
C.
a year ago now.
Yeah, was it a year ago?
Yeah.
Remember the personality of your podcast of your boss. Speak their language.
Yeah.
So if they're a D, and you're an I, you're not going to come in and flop in their chair
Right.
and ask them how they're doing and spend 10 minutes. They don't want that.
Right.
So you come in and go, "Hi, thank you for meeting with me. I know we have 15 minutes here. I just want to take advantage of these 15 minutes. I sent you questions ahead of time. Can we jump right in?"
Yeah.
They're going to go, "Yep, let's do it."
Yeah.
And they're going to like you. And the next time you schedule time with them, they're like, "Oh, he's great to meet with." Have you ever heard me say that, Tanya? Go, "Oh, he's great to meet with. I'll meet with him."
Yeah.
They've acknowledged my time. They come prepared. I can always make room for those kind of people.
And honoring that time too, when you say, "I'm going to take 15 minutes of your time," keeping an eye on actually taking 15 minutes of their time and not 18 minutes of their time or 20 minutes at a time is important. But question for you, a lot of people, and I know just because before I worked here, I was in the workplace, I worked in Verizon and stuff like that. A lot of my bosses were right on the floor with me. They were my boss. How does this kind of attitude apply when I'm working more side by side, but I still want to have influence in that organization, but it's not so much like, "Oh, this is my boss who is out of reach for me." This is like, he's kind of more side to side.
Yeah, I think it's the same principles. I think when you're working with your manager on the floor and you say, "Hey, when it slows down, can I have 5 minutes of your time?" Maybe your allotment of time is smaller.
Yeah.
And what you're asking for is focus time.
Yeah.
And you're probably, because you're rubbing shoulders, are going to get your opinion more often.
Yeah.
And what you're going to want to do is give the answer that they want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever be give the answer they want to hear.
Yeah.
Know your timing and say, "Well, that might be I have a different opinion. That might be a question later."
Yeah.
But I'm trying not to also be drama. So there's this assessing that you're always doing.
Yeah.
Because if you're always that negative Nancy, or then they're going to stop asking you.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can go, you just let it go.
Yeah.
And then pick your time, pick your point. But when you have that moment, you want to maximize it.
Yeah.
You want to maximize it.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember at Verizon, there was a season where I had that influence, and I remember thinking back to this a few years ago, and I lost that influence because I took advantage of it.
Yes.
And that was,
how did you take advantage? Do you remember what are some of the things?
I don't remember the exact stuff. I just remember I started having my opinions were, I've always had, me, I've always had strong opinions.
Yeah.
But I started letting these be more frequent.
Yes.
And I lost that influence. And I remember thinking, I don't have this like I used to. He's not listening to me like I used to. And it bummed me out. And I didn't get it back.
Influence takes times to build and seconds to lose.
So true.
And that's integrity. Is very similar in that way. Yeah. It is. I think the other thing to do. This leads up to point 5 on this. As you're slowly building that influence. You're trying to be the best that you can be. Not because you're brown. You're trying to be a great employee.
Yeah.
I want to be the best that I can be here. And then I think number 5 then is you have to have a full scope picture. And I think what often is our full scope picture is just the job that we do. Mm-hmm. But then our leaders that are working, they have a broader picture, and we don't see the broader picture. Yeah. We just see our area. And I think it's important that we learn to see the bigger picture. Yeah. A simple example, when I was a children's pastor, I was never a children's pastor. I was a pastor at the entire church. That was my mindset. Yeah. I did kids ministries, but I wanted to know what was going on in the youth ministries. I wanted to know what was going on the weekend. It took extra work for me to figure out all of those things. But when I spoke, I could bring the full big picture. Well, guess what that created? Created more influence for me to be able to speak in the areas because I wasn't just the children's person. I could speak to the whole picture.
You have to make time to do that. you can't just do your job and focus. You have to say, I'm going to take time and think through this, because if you just stay focused on your job, you're losing. You're not focusing. You're not taking. You have to. It's extra time. It's extra energy. It's extra effort.
If you want to have influence, it's going to require time.
Yeah.
It's going to require sacrifice. It's going to require doing the things no one else wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it pays off in time.
Absolutely.
And the goal on all of that, you're doing it with a servant's heart, and then it's influence.
Yeah.
If you're doing it to climb a ladder, that's manipulation. Yep. We had a conversation just recently here at our church. I was teaching what we call the huddle to all of our employees, and I said, when you climb a ladder in an organization, the ladder is made of human beings. You're literally climbing over people.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that kind of a person. Joy and adventure comes when I'm holding up the person.
That's good.
And when you're holding up and lifting up other people, you will naturally, in a healthy way, gain greater influence.
Yeah.
There are people within our organization that have way bigger influence than their title would look like.
Yeah.
And it's because they have a servant's heart.
Yeah.
Put me around a group of servant-hearted people.
Yeah.
And I'll build teams with them every day.
Yeah.
Put me around a person who's climbing a ladder, and there's always a check.
Yep.
There's always a check, and their influence goes down. It's just the reality. So I think you have to have a big picture. And when you have a big picture idea, you're going to give an idea, no strings attached.
Yeah.
You're giving an idea, and then you're not holding on to that. You're like, if it works, great. If it's not, and one of the things that will often happen, and this happened, Tanya does this all the time to me. Tanya will give me an idea, and I go, oh, that sounds good. And then like a couple months later, I'm like going, guys, I got an idea. This is what we're going to be doing. and this happens all the time. And Tanya's like, that was my idea.
Yep.
But I don't ever hear from Tanya.
No.
That was my idea.
Yeah.
But then we'll be in a conversation later, and I'll go, wait, that was your idea. And she just smiles and go, servant-hearted.
Yeah.
Increase in influence.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do. You're serving, no strings attached. I don't even need to get the win out of it. Yep. I don't need the affirmation out of it. I'm here to serve. Yeah. I'm here to serve. That doesn't mean I don't like affirmation.
Sure.
But that's not what that's attached to.
Yeah.
I'm not seeking it out.
That's good.
And then I think number six is if you want to lead upwards, let me give you I like running starts into the last one. First one, you got to lead yourself. Second one, you got to be the first to say yes. You agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just joking. 3, you got to give an honest opinion when asked.
I'm still working on that one.
Are you liking this podcast?
I'm still working on that one.
4, be prepared when you take your leader's time. 5, have a full scope picture. And here's the 6th one. Wisely communicate information. And I have some trigger words here. Wisely being the one in number 6. Give them when you're sharing, give them the information that they need, which is not always giving them all the information.
That's good.
Because then the right information is lost in all the information. I don't want all the information given to me. I want just the information that I need.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when I'm working with people, like I was sitting with the board making a presentation and I thought, I don't have to give them all of this information. They'll lose. It's not going to help them. I just need to be succinct. What's that word? Succinct in exactly what they need to know. So I do the work ahead of time. I provide them that information, and it gives them enough to make the decision that they need. I call it when you communicate with your leaders, give them short truths, not novels.
That's good.
You want to not like this podcast. This podcast is a novel. Okay, but again, I'm always honoring of time. Here is the short truth, not a novel.
Yeah.
You know, it's easier to preach 50 minutes than it is 30 minutes.
Yep.
Now most people are like, man, I could never preach. But when you go, that long,
right.
Actually, when you begin to write a message or you begin to write a speech, and you have to be 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You're going to always have an hour and a half of content, and then getting it down to 30 minutes is so hard.
Yeah.
I say that because when you want to give short truths, not novels, you want to be careful that you're not processing what you're saying to them at the same time you're saying it. So here's a trick that I do to influence the influencers in my life.
Yeah.
I practice my meetings before I have them.
Yeah.
And I practice their responses. I
Yeah.
do this all the time. Tanya has even asked me before, have you practiced this meeting yet when I'm going into someone? Yeah, I have. I'll practice it. And I practice all of their responses.
Mm-hmm.
So that if they respond positively, okay, I know how to. If they respond negatively, I know how to handle that.
Yeah.
Because I want to give short truths and not just go on and on and on and on where they become bored. So I like bullet points.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
I've learned I write, so a lot of times my communication is through like messaging of some sort.
Yeah.
So I'll write it all out and then I break it down into bullet points. So even like there's sometimes like I'll send you a Slack
Yep.
and I'm like, oh wait, this is way too long. And I cut it down, 3 or 4 bullet points, boom.
Because I'm probably not going to read the entire Slack.
No.
I don't have the time. But you give me the bullet points. I'm like, okay, good. Perfect.
Yeah.
So let me say these again, and then we'll wrap this podcast up.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you, if you'll start thinking through this and find the right heart of influence, I want to serve those around me.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to have more joy and adventure in your job. A lot of people hate their job because they're looking at it for their own benefit of growth, and they've not discovered the power of serving.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you don't ever leave your job or move
Sure.
on to something. Don't swing me to a pendulum, to an extreme. But if you're at a job right now, give it a month of serving. Give it a month of going, I'm going to go in every day with the best attitude that I can.
Yeah.
Regardless of the history, regardless of your back. I'm going to go in with the best attitude that I have.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be a person of influence, not manipulation, which means I'm going to serve those around me.
Yeah.
And so here's the number 1, lead yourself. Number 2, be the first to say yes. 3, give an honest opinion when asked.
Yeah.
4, be prepared when you take your leader's time. 5, have a big picture, full scope picture. And then number 6, wisely communicate information. Let me give one verse that sort of raptures, or not raptures, but captures.
Let's have a rapture
Captures.
here.
It's not rapture. Finish the podcast. Finish the podcast. That captures this. Jesus was talking to his disciples. You can find this in Matthew 20 if you're a Bible person. And one of the disciples goes, I want to sit at the right hand of God. And Jesus said, he goes, we know that in this world, leaders lord it over others. And people are masters over others. And then he looked at them. I call it the Great Culture Commission. And he looked at them and he said this, but among you, it will be different.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at that text, it's Matthew chapter 20, verse 23, 24, 25, 26. You read those first few verses and you go, that is our workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jesus said, but it will be different among you. I have really tried to take, that's a key verse in my life. I want to lead differently and I want to serve differently than the world.
Yeah.
And people notice it and your influence grows because of it.
That's good.
It's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But it is a Jesus principle that is profound and it works.
Yeah.
So
pretty crazy how when you put others first, how you become glorified. Not glorified, but you raise up in influence of
your
yourself.
influence expands. It's a powerful thing. And your heart is to serve.
Yeah.
And yet when you're serving others, who doesn't want more servants?
Yeah.
In a wonderful way that makes everybody else better.
Yeah.
Your life gets better.
Just
joy and adventure.
Love it. What a good conversation. And so let's move on. We're ending everything out here. We've got some more episodes coming up, month at a time right now. And if you haven't, do you know what you're talking about next month?
Nope. I'm waiting to see if I go back in the hospital.
Are you serious?
No, but I'm getting a colonoscopy in 6 weeks, so that will make the podcast. We're shooting live.
Trigger warning. Trigger warning.
Hey, if you haven't already, be sure you subscribe to our podcast on any of the platforms. Check us out on YouTube as well. Check out the website if you have any questions or you want to look at the old podcast. They're all right there. That is all of our stuff. Kevin, what else you got?
Awesome. Well, like us on Instagram and Facebook. Hey, would you share this podcast with someone? Maybe it's at your workplace. In fact, you want to love your boss. Tell them about our podcast.
Ooh.
Or you might get fired. But one
They're
or
like,
the other.
is this a passive-aggressive way you're trying to tell me you want influence?
Exactly. And then also leave us a review. We always appreciate that. That helps our podcast get around as well. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Appreciate it so much.
Hey, that's all we have for you today. For Kevin, myself, and the team, thank you for listening to the LifeNGeer Podcast, where truth leads to joy and adventure.